One of the reasons why I asked my mom to do this was with some of the recent events that are going on in our world. Um, I was talking to my mom because she was involved in protests the first time around with civil rights, and so she'll share some of her story. But when she was sharing stories about her, really what hooked me was when she started telling stories of being 15 years old. And that was when they first started integrating schools. And she talked about how, like, going to the school, like, how the kids would be mean to her and things like that. And just in my mind, I'm thinking of my daughter, Ezra. And I'm like, Ezra's 15. And she was just telling how all she could do was go to school. She couldn't go to any after school activities. She couldn't do any sports. She couldn't be involved in any clubs because all those things happened at white only institutions. And so she just went to school and went home. It was her and one other girl who she says she's friends with to this day because they just went through such a time together. And so when she was telling me about that, I was like, wow, this is something that I want my kids to hear. And so as I thought about my kids, I started thinking about other people who may benefit from just her sharing some of her story and some of her perspective from then and now. And so that's why we kind of put this together.
I'm working on it.
And so whenever you're ready, Mom, you can just kind of dive in and tell the story the way you want to tell it.
With me is Lonnie, and what we're going to do is actually integrate. He is from Oklahoma. I'm from Mississippi. And as we were talking about what was going on, he had quite a different experience. Not so different, but different enough that I thought it would be good if he give you a little what it was like when they started integration for him. And then I'll come in and tell you what it was like when they started for me. So go ahead, Lonnie.
Well, when we started integration, and when I was 17, back in 1958, not allowed to do it, not allowed to do it. There were very few people in that town had swimming pools, so they had a community swimming pool. And one thing they would not allow us to do, you couldn't swim. You find your pond or something like that and swim in. But far as the blacks and the whites getting together, that wasn't happening. Schools were integrated, but not the people. So that was the start of it all.
In 1967, I actually was 16 at the time, Morvin. I told you 15, but I was 16 at the time. It was the summer of 67. And we finally had a leader that was rallying us along as far as protesting and declaring that we deserved better than what we were getting. And so your dad, Morvin, my dad, your granddad and my dad was very active in that participation. So he asked me if I wanted to come along with him, and I said yes. So yes, I did protest. Yes, I did carry signs. Yes, I did march. I did the entire things, but there was never any violence or rioting or anything like that. And all of my friends and I were right along together. We marched right down the streets, just like you see the kids doing today. And when it was time for school to start in the fall, my dad asked if I wanted to go to what was called an all-white school at the time. I said yes, because I thought all of my friends were going to go also. And when the first day of school started, I rode the same bus I always rode with, the same kids I always rode with. And when the bus pulled up to the school, I thought everybody was going to get up and get off, and I was the only one getting off. And so that was a shock right then and there for me. So I went in, and just so happened I found one other Black girl that was there. Now the significance of that was that started the worst 2 years of my life. It was the worst school years, the worst years. I had never in my life experienced hatred the way that we experienced it those 2 years. I like to say it was so thick it could be cut. The football team pushed and bullied us around. The teachers bullied us around. The principals bullied us around. I did not get to go to not one single dance. As a matter of fact, I didn't even get to go to any school assemblies. I did not even know what the gym looked like until my senior year. And we had, at that time, there was 2 ceremonies. They had what was called a baccalaureate and a commencement. And so I had an opportunity to go to the baccalaureate, which was in the gym. And I was looking around going, oh, this is what the gym looks like. Commencement was held at a private country club, which we were not able to attend. The assemblies were held there, the football games. Never got a chance to go to any of the games or any activities whatsoever in school. So it was a very lonely time for me, and lonely in that in Mississippi, there was no hiding hatred. As a matter of fact, it was exalted. You know, when you're in other states, made it very, very clear, we absolutely do not want you around. And so it made me feel, you know, just really shut off from the rest of the world. For my graduation pictures, we had little capes that we got a chance to wear, and we were told to get to the end of the line because they didn't want us wearing capes before the whites had a chance to put them on. So we had to wait, me and my friend Vivian had to wait until all of them get through their pictures, and then we could come in and take out. That was the only thing we got a chance to do, was have a graduation picture. And then my diploma, I had to come back and pick it up later on because the commencement was held at a private country club. I took driver's ed while I was in school because I wanted to get a discount on the insurance to help my father not have to pay so much. It was me and 2 other girls that were in the class for the entire semester, and not once did I get a chance to drive. I was always on the back seat, and when it was time for me to drive, the class period was over or whatever. And I still didn't think much of it because I was thinking, well, I'll still be able to get the discount for the insurance. But when I got ready to get the discount for the insurance, I found out that it was not registered on my transcript. The instructor did not put it on my transcript. And when I went and tried to get them to put it on the transcript, they would not do it because they say it was past time. You know, I don't even remember what the excuse was, but it was something so that I wouldn't have an opportunity to get it put on there. I continued with the protesting and marching throughout my senior year. When I graduated from high school and was time to go to college, there was a college in Mississippi that was well known called Ole Miss, that was an all-white college. And so my dad wanted to know that I want to go there. And I'm sure you can guess what my answer was there. No way. No, I do not want to go. I just want to rest for a while. So for 2 years, I sat back and I didn't do anything. And then my junior year in college, something sparked in me again because I just wanted better. I just knew there had to be something more. I wanted something better. And the protests and the marching was still going on. We were seeing a few changes, but not many. And so I joined back in my junior year in college and participated for a while then. And then my senior year, I became interested in graduating so I could get a job and, you know, accomplish great things in my life. And so I'm gonna let Lonnie pick up a little because I'm at my work time now and let him tell some of the things about his work.
Well, I left Oklahoma and then went to California. And I always thought California would be a lot better, but most of California was here. I managed to marry a white lady who was Jewish, and whenever we would go anywhere, not all the time, but a lot of time we'd go in, you would hear some of the whites that would say, look at that in with that white lady. What are you doing with that lady? You know, and it's then I left L.A. That was all happening in L.A. I left L.A. and went to Anaheim, and thought it would be better there, and it was better to some degree. Most of the whites, what have you, they kept it all quiet, but they did not like the idea that I was with a white lady. Uh, and at times it get nasty, but you know, I overcame it.
Now, I lived in LA for a while also. And my reason for leaving LA was I got tired of my TVs being stolen. My house was broken in 3 times, not by whites, but by blacks. Broken into 3 times, and the only thing they were stealing was your TV and your radio and your cassette players. And, you know, if they could, if my car was stolen one time, it was just, oh gosh, I thought, I do not want to live in an environment like this. Now, don't get me wrong in thinking I'm saying, well, go to a white environment because they are better. I was saying go to a white environment because they own the TV stores. They weren't interested in stealing your TV. They own the radio shops. They weren't interested in that. They own the dealerships. So I knew that if I could get in an environment where the economic status was a little bit better, then life would be better for me. And it was never, ever once. I think we lived in Thousand Oaks for more than 13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lived in Thousand Oaks 13 years, and never was my house broken in. Never was anything ever taken. My car wasn't stolen or anything like that. So in that respect, it was better. But when it came to a job, by then I had worked and gotten my master's degree, because I found that with my bachelor's degree, I still wasn't able to get a job that was any better than my white counterparts who had a high school education. And I thought, well, I know what I'll do. I'll get a master's, and then that'll at least get me a little bit farther along. That'll get me to a little bit better status. And so I got a master's degree, and I did make supervisor, but then so were my counterparts who were, again, you know, just high school graduates. So there was always that inequity. And so when you see, you know, you hear what people are protesting now, and they're saying, darn it, we're tired. We're absolutely tired. You hear Lonnie say, he started in 57. I'm saying I started in 67. And now here you are in 2020. And basically you're looking at the very same things that, you know, people are looking at the very same things that we're looking at. We're not getting the same pay for the work done. We're not getting opportunities for promotions. We're not getting just respect. Lonnie, you were telling about how they would treat you being a supervisor.
Yeah, I was a supervisor. Yeah, got promoted to be a supervisor in this field there. The thing that always trouble you, you would have a guy too that's on your job wouldn't come to you with things that are important or things they want to tell. They'd go over your head to the boss, and then the first thing you'd hear from the boss say, I'm not aware of this. You know, some things you might not wanted your boss to know, but it was always to a point where they always try to degrade you or bring you down because they didn't think you were their equal. So it made it kind of hard to manage, you know, a group of guys.
So then, of course, I was living in California. Bonnie was living in California. We didn't know each other at the time. And I came to Texas with a job transfer. And I was really leery because I knew I was coming back into the deep South again, where prejudice was not hidden. It was just outright blatant. But I can say, fortunately, in the 20 years that I have been here, I have not run into any derogatory actions toward me, or, you know, at the time, my husband, before he died, nothing derogatory toward him. So yes, we can see a lot of change. And I know it might not reach you guys, but hopefully not now, later on. The thing that made the difference in my life then and now, I know that God was watching over me and taking care of me and making sure that no harm came nigh me. And even now, as I live alone, because my husband is dead, as I live alone, I have no fear, I have no anxiety. The neighborhood that I live in is 100% white, and everybody on the block is extremely kind and nice to me. So I think what I'm trying to get across is even though we went through all the things that we went through, we know that there are kind white people. There are people who love us. There are people who looking out for us. As a matter of fact, when my husband first died and I came to Ohio and stayed for 3 months, they watched over my house and took care of things as if I was right there, and they constantly stayed in contact with me. And I've had that experience since I've been here, and I don't see anything changing in that right now. You had some negative?
Well, I had one, and actually it was last year, basically. I was just walking in my yard, and a couple of guys drove up in a truck and they said, "Oh, they're the black people," you know. And I had that to happen, and even the police, when probably 5-6 years ago, I'm walking around my house, looking around and everything, and police guy comes up and he says, first thing he asked me, "Do you live here?" Now, I've been living in there for 15 years or so in that neighborhood. Because I bought my house in '92, and just the idea of me walking around outside of my house to think that, I guess, to think I'm gonna steal something or something. Other than that, most of all have been very cordial.
And so in raising our son, it did not surprise me when Morvin did not know the things that I had gone through as a child or as a young adult, because to me, it had no warrant to where he was going and what I wanted to happen in his life. I wanted him to have a positive attitude. I wanted him to have a positive outlook on life. And I knew if I continued to rehearse those things that had happened, all it was going to do was build up anger and hatred in his heart. And there's no way that you can go forward if you're going to have hatred in your heart. You have to be able to forgive. I don't care how many times someone does something to you. It's your responsibility, like the Bible says, to forgive and continue to forgive. And so though this conversation that I'm having with you guys now, he's hearing it just for the second time, like you're hearing it for the first time. I didn't see the need to rehearse this type of information with him. Wasn't trying to hide it, wasn't ashamed of it, but it was not part of the platform that I had in raising him. And Lonnie and I were talking earlier today about the different iterations that we as a people have gone through. Early from the beginning, as long as we could know, we were referred to as colors. You know, we were the colors. And then we went from being colored to.
At first, we were Negroes.
Oh, we were Negroes first?
Right.
Okay, we were Negroes, and then we went to color, and then we went to Negra. And that was one of the things that irritated me more than anything else. It was as if whites couldn't say the word Negro, so it was always Negra or, go ahead. Nigger.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And now the rappers, to get around that, most all the rappers nigger, but it's N-I-G-G-A and instead of the E-R. Most of your rappers, that's what they they use now.
Go ahead. Elaborate on that a little more.
No, that's
And the whole thing is like a charmy buddy thing with them, but it's still offensive to the majority of the Blacks because it's a derogatory term for us. And when you hear that and constantly feed on that, it gives you a negative attitude and make you begin to look at people in a different light. And that's what I was saying. I never really rehearsed any of the stuff that I had gone through because I didn't want to shed a negative light in Morvin's life and have him afraid and looking to the left or to the right, thinking someone is always after him. The only thing that I remember that I told him, which was negative, and I hope he didn't use it in a negative way. When he started driving, I told him that if he's ever pulled over by a cop, make sure he keep both of his hands on the steering wheel. Do not go to his car pocket to get out the registration or to his wallet to get his license, because always cops say they're threatened if you're doing that by a Black person. So keep your hands on the wheel. If you go to reach for something, let them know exactly what you're going to reach for. And if you look at what's happening today, that's still one of the things that cops will say, oh, I felt threatened. And it's so easy for them to take your life like that. So that was the only positive thing that I gave to him in a negative, light, saying don't reach for anything if you get pulled over. And it saddens my heart because I look at George Floyd, and I think that's so close to the age of my son. And, it just breaks my heart to think that something like that could happen to him. You got anything? Okay, do you guys have any questions?
Mrs. Dixon, you've done a really good job teaching Morvin to present himself in a confident, non-threatening way in those types of environments, like you're talking about getting pulled over, but also in other environments, just like when you're walking down the street. Are there any tips that maybe you could share on how to present yourself confidently and non-threateningly? Is that a word?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's, a lot of times, and it's so real, peer pressure is so very real. We always want to do what our friends are doing and act like our friends and stuff like that. And I continually tried to instill in Morvin that he was an individual and that he was better than the environment that he was in. When we lived in Los Angeles, it was a pretty negative environment that we were in. And my whole desire, not only just to get away from where, they were still in my TVs and stuff like that, but get away from young guys who, by the time they were 12 or 13 was already engaging in gang activity. That was not going to get him anywhere. Now, my father was a very ambitious man, and I love my father, so I'm always happy when I see Josiah following Morvin around, and that's what I did with my dad all the time also. And he instilled in me an ambition to be better. And in order to be better, you have to kind of keep your record clean, keep your attitude clean, be able to engage with people of all ethnicities, all ages, and so I try to keep that going with him. I try to keep him in an environment so that he could always engage with different ages and different people so that he could do better. I always wanted him to do better than what I was doing. No matter how good I did, I wanted him to do better. And so, we kind of kept him aware of everything that was going on, talked with him about what was happening, what was going on, and did a lot of prayer.
one other thing. When you walk around or what have you, walk with your head up. Don't pull your head down. I know that young people today like the hoodies. The hoodies are fine, but hold your head up. Let people know that you are somebody.
And that's actually one of the things that we were able to achieve, because it was considered aggressive if a Black person looked a white person in the eye when I was growing up. So we were basically trained to keep your head down, do not look a white person in the eye. If you did, you know, all kind of things would happen to you. And so to be at a point where by the time Morvin was born, we could tell him, no, hold your head up, speak, open. I used to tell him all the time, use your lips, use your tongue when you're speaking. Don't slur your language, you know, which is so typical for a lot of Black guys to do, just lazy lip. I didn't like that lazy lip. So I used to always tell him, open your mouth, use your tongue, use your lips, you know, smile when you're talking, put a smile in your voice. People can hear that over the phone. They can hear it when you're talking with them. And, you know, I'm just gonna brag. I think he does excellently at that. Did that answer your question?
That was very good. Thank you.
Okay.
So again, you know, as we look at, you know, where, of course, the progress that has been made and, you know, where we sit today, you know, it seems like you're communicating an understanding of wanting to speak out because, again, you know, you indicated, you know, we're tired. We've had some of these things for a long time. And so you understand that there's a desire to want to speak out. But if we're going to have, you know, changes like you're talking about, it sounds like there needs to be a lot of positives mixed in with overcoming this negative.
Yes, and I'm sure that you can see as you're watching on TV, there's a distinct group between those that are rioting and protesting. And there's a big difference in protest and riot. I protested, I never rioted. I stood in front of stores with signs, I sat in, I did the calmest thing that it was because the last thing I wanted was something on my record because all I knew was where I was, I wanted to be better. I wanted to do better. And I felt like I achieved a lot of that. And as soon as I had a child, I was determined that that child was going to realize that there is better. Regardless of how good things are for you right now, it can be better. But you have to start young. You can't wait until you get 20, 30, 40, and then decide, oh, I'm going to change now, and now I'm going to be better. You have to start early in life. Decide what you want to be. You know, start thinking now. It amazes me when I hear some of the career that people majored in, college careers that they had. And I'm a teacher and nurse. And now I hear there are all kind of opportunities. So think about what it is that you enjoy and begin to pattern yourself for that now. I'm not saying cut out all your fun, don't have fun, don't do anything fun, but do start thinking about a future right now. You're not always going to be young. As a matter of fact, Josiah had to help me in the car the other day. I was saying, now how long ago was that? Was that 33 years, 43? He had to tell me it was 53 years, Mima. So he had to tell me how long ago that was that I was going through all that. Because again, I've just put it out of my mind. It's not something that I choose to dwell on. Even as I see what's going on right now, it's not something that I choose to dwell on. I have a higher view. I see my years now, you know, going in a different direction than that.
Mrs. Dixon, how important has faith been in this process for you?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, and I think it was 85. Well, no, I go back farther than that. In 1977, I had a miscarriage and I was devastated. And I went to Crenshaw Christian Center. That's a large church in Los Angeles, pastored at that time by Frederick Price. And I went to that church and I was just so devastated over the loss of my child because I really wanted to have more than just Morvin. I did. I love you, Morvin. I just wanted to throw that in. But I did want to have other children. And so I was not able to have other children. And I went there and the pastor started talking And he started talking about how we could trust God. We, let him be the one who gives us the desire of our heart. And they began to teach us about who we are in Christ, that we don't have to accept things just because that's the way that they are. When we start looking at God as our source and not the world or not man, then a lot of the things that upset other people won't upset us so much. And so I began to turn my direction from the world and began to turn it towards God. And even though I never did have another child, my life has been completely fulfilled. I love my son. He has been the best gift God could ever give me. I don't even think I could have had 100 children and been any more happy than I am right now. And I still attribute that to God's mercy for me, fulfilling that desire. I am one of 8 children, youngest of 8 children, and I love my large family. It was so good. And so I just couldn't see having just one child. That just seemed like, oh, that's horrible. But the Lord has fulfilled that desire. So learning who you are in Christ and going forward in that makes all the difference in the world.
I put my hanky away.
You have been a good son. Ezra.
Yeah.
I look at you and I'm so proud of the fact that you're driving, and I'm so proud of the fact that you're becoming a young lady. And I know that this is a very impressionable time, and that you want to, friends are important. And remember, I said earlier, when I went to that non-integrated school at the time, and I had to leave all of my friends behind, that was a very, very difficult time for me. But I was strong and I made it. And you can be strong and you can make it also. I don't know what your friendships are like or what they will be like. And any of the rest of you ladies, I know with girls, it's real, real important to have friends. But be the leader, don't be the follower. Decide. And I know your dad will tell you that, because he used to surprise me sometimes. When all of his friends would be doing the weirdest, craziest thing, he had a little group that he had surrounded himself with, and they would defy the odds. And I was so proud of them for being that. So you don't have to be a follower. And sometimes it means you might have to be by yourself for a short period of time. But as we're talking, if you pray, the Lord will bring you those lasting friends. That one friend that I went to high school with, 53 years later, she and I are still friends. And we don't live in the same state. We don't have any of the same hobbies. We don't do anything, but the Lord connected our hearts and we're still friends.
You've talked so much about the positivity, and I love that and appreciate it so much. One of the discussions we've had in our house regularly has a lot to do with the music that we listen to, the movies that we watch.
Okay.
Could you speak to that maybe a little bit about the disrespect I see in those things towards, humans and women in particular a lot?
Yeah, and you know what, Pastor, I'm an older lady, and so the kids probably don't want to hear what I have to say, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I'm a firm believer in what the Bible says. Be careful what you hear, be careful what you see, and be careful what you say. And as a result, I closely monitor what goes into my ear gate, my eye gate, and into my heart. Because out of the abundance of the heart is how you're going to act and speak. And if you get all of that stuff in there, it's going to come back out, guys. I don't care how you think. If you're listening to the same type of music over and over and over again, you don't even realize that you wake up in the night and that's what's on your mind, or you get up in the morning and that's what's on your mind. And there is nothing positive or good that's going to come of that. And so in our household, and Morvin was, in retrospect, I hope he appreciated now, but in our household, I had just gone strictly 100% gospel music. And I'm not saying that's the only way to go. I'm not saying that's the only thing to do, but that was the only thing that played in our household. And then as far as movies, we did not do our movies. That, to me, that was too much right there. I know now they have different labels, but at that time, an R was as hard as it go, and we just did not do our movies.
Thank you. That's a great standard.
Mhm. And I notice now when I come to visit him and he has his radio on, I hear Christian music bumping throughout the house. So, so obviously it caught on.
He calls into ESFM so much, I think he's got a job there.
All right, Mom and Lonnie, thank you guys for your time and for your perspective.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Oh, hey,
okay.
Rena had a question.
No.
Okay.
Karina has a question.
No, I know.
She does. Karina wanted to know if the stuff that's going on right now worries her.
Oh, does the stuff going on right now worry you?
No, it doesn't. The only thing that, like I say, that concerns me, and it doesn't worry me because I know how to turn to the Lord for it, is I think about my son and my grandkids, and you know how easily something could happen to them. And so rather than sit and worry and think about that, I just continually lift it up before the Lord. As a matter of fact, Lonnie is my friend, and he comes over and visits every evening. And during that evening, we have a prayer session, and we have all of your names on there, and we're constantly lifting you up before the Lord and praying and, you know, asking the Lord to keep you safe and, you know, keep your mind strong and your body's healthy and you out of harm's way. So if no one else is praying for you, know that your Mima is, your mother-in-law is, and your mother is. And what would I say if Ezra says she wanted to go out and protest? I would ask her not to.
Ask what?
Not to, not to.
Yeah, you asked
What?
me.
What did you say, Ezra?
No, I said you asked me not to.
Oh, I did. I asked you not to also. But I'm saying she's right at the age when I did, and I would ask her not to.
Yeah.
And simply because, like I say, during the time that there was violence, but again, it was a very small town that I grew up in. And so the violence was nowhere close to what you see on the TV screens today. My dad did get taken down to the jail, but they did not keep him overnight. I was never beaten, I was never kicked, I was never tear gassed or water hosed or anything like that. So I guess you could say our protesting was pretty calm compared to what you see today.
Thank you so much, both.
Okay,
Really,
okay. Thank you guys for having us. This is really a privilege.
Yeah. All right, Mama. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.